Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be with three incredible artists today. Say hi to Isma Hassan, Ikroop Sandhu, and Hit Man Gurung. A little bit about them. Isma Gul Hasan is a visual artist and illustrator based in Lahore, Pakistan. She received her bachelor's degree in visual communication design from Beacon House National University in 2017, completed an MA in illustration from Camberwell College of Arts, University of the Arts London in 2020, spanning the realms of speculative fiction, visual storytelling, and design for social change. Her work explores themes like trauma and memory, hope and healing, and agency and autonomy. She has worked as an illustrator and animator at Sherry Pakistan, an initiative aiming to provide accessible civic education through audio-visual content, and was the creative director for the first ever dystopian, traditionally animated Pakistani short film, Sher Tabassum, I hope I said that right, which was screened both locally and internationally and received critical acclaim. Ikroop Sandhu is an artist based in Dharamshala, India. After a peripatetic childhood where drawing was the only constant, she went on to do her BA in philosophy from Lady Shri Ram College, Delhi, and then a diploma in visual studies from the Vancouver Film School. Her work explores identity and its many intersections. It focuses on the feminine capacity for knowledge gathering, storytelling, and reflecting. She draws her center from the feminist slogan, "The personal is political." Her primary mediums are drawing and animation. Her work has been published in 3 graphic narrative anthologies. She has worked on video art pieces for a living. Her current work in progress is a graphic biography on the Punjabi revolutionary Bhagat Singh. Hit Man Gurung was born in Lamjung, Nepal, and is currently based in Kathmandu. He completed his MFA from Central Department of Fine Arts, Tribhuvan University in 2012. His various media of work are concerned with some of the most pressing socio-political, socio-economic, and socio-cultural landscape of Nepal, a decade-long people's war, unstable governments, and the impact all of this has had on the personal and professional lives of Nepali citizens. In parallel, his art also speaks to the strong impact of global capitalism, the dramatic economic boom in the Middle East and Southeast Asia, and their unprecedented investment in infrastructure development, leading to a high demand of cheap labor. Gurung infuses his paintings, documentary, photo, video, performance, and installation works with political conviction and personal poetry. He's participated in major national and international art exhibits, including Nitin Biennale of Sydney 2020 as part of Artry Triennial of Contemporary Art, Brisbane. And I am going to skip over some of his incredible qualifications. And I'm so thrilled to be with the 3 of you. My name is Kartika. I'm here on behalf of the South Asian Avant-Garde Anthology, which is a dissident literary anthology featuring fiction, essays, journalism, plays, poetry, and hybrid multimedia work. We seek to reclaim radical traditions that have been excised from South Asian histories and forge new communities and reinforce necessary solidarities. Today, we are talking about protest art that responds to and seeks to transform political and social upheaval, art that really demands change, which is exactly what these 3 incredible artists do. So I wanted to start by asking the 3 of you, what was that triggering moment or event in time in history, whether it was the personal or political or both, since as Ikroop said, they are one and the same. What was that moment that really incited your shift towards actively resisting and protesting through your art?
Who wants to begin? Shall I start?
Yes.
Okay. So it happened pretty organically. I wouldn't say there was this one moment, but it was a series of many moments, right from being born a girl in a Punjabi society, which is very patriarchal and clearly favors the boy, and growing up in that heroic um, idea of heroism that only men are allowed to kind of go on these adventures, and then they bring back these tales and you kind of talk about them, then women kind of retell these tales to their children of these heroic men. So it kind of began from my father's journey. He was in the army, and he would go on all these expeditions. He would come back with these extraordinary stories. And I felt the need to kind of retell his story because he's really good at narrating his. I don't know, the way he does it. It's really good. So basically, I could feel myself shifting towards, oh, I need to tell these stories of my father going on these adventures, and my mother would kind of encourage it. And I'm kind of rambling, I know, but basically it went on to I had to tell myself that I'm not going to tell stories of men in my family. I'm going to choose to tell stories of women in my family. So the story that I did start with telling, drawing a graphic narrative that I did, that was of my great grandmother, who my mother had randomly mentioned that, she had this incident of where she kind of died and came back to life. And then she had this whole journey that she went through. And she was guilty about killing her own children, her little baby girls. So I was like, wow, that's a great story. And I need to start telling that story. So I guess it was, these kind of, I was resisting this heroic idea of Punjabi men, and it kind of drew me towards the women in my family.
Thing. Yeah, I think
That's my
I very much agree with Ikro in the sense that there wasn't one specific event that made me instantly realize that I want to go this, that this is the kind of direction I want my work to go in. Um, like similar to the group, it started at a very young age, watching my mother, watching what she was going through, still does go through her experiences, and me and her and my sisters being a part of an oppressive environment, an oppressive household, where um, like you have very little agency and you are not in control of things. And growing up and observing these things, observing what's happening in this house, but then also being able to draw connections with friends and women around me who are going through similar situations. And then that in turn form connections with um like what I'm reading in books, histories, and recognizing that that goes so far back into time, and that all of this is connected to larger realities. And then as I gained more awareness, as I read up on this more, talked to people more, shared stories, realizing the systems of which we are part. And in a way, I think my work now is a continuation of all of those realizations that came along the way. But my main source of, I think, I think my main source of inspiration and my main starting point for all that I do and all that I talk about is not an event, but a person, which is my mom. It goes back to my mother. And a lot of depictions of them in my work are visually similar to her as well. And I think up till now, it's like her voice is carried into everything that I talk about. But in it are assimilated all the other voices across history, across time, and also horizontally right now as we exist. They expand and reach outward towards many, many people I know or know of. And so it's like a chorus of voices that started from like one source. But yeah, I think, yeah, it wasn't an event. I think it was a multiple events that we keep hearing about on the news or immediately like all around us in our rooms. And all of that just coming together to, I don't know, just drive me in a direction where this is, yeah, I just want to talk about this. And also, again, I feel like I'm rambling as well. There's so much in this, right? Like these are such emotional things to talk about as well. Um, like also, I completely lost my train of thought. But no, I just wanted to, I think, just talk about this and how all of it just comes from back from this source. Yeah, might remember it later. We'll bring it up if I do remember it. But yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
So yeah, fortunately and unfortunately, like I grown up in the time when lots of this political and social changes transformation was happening in Nepal. So when we were in school, so this People's War was in the peak, and so every day there was like lots of political instability and lots of turmoil was happening. And when I was in art school, so mostly I was like the education system is more like manipulated version of like which we adopted from the India that was established by this East India Company, colonial East India Company. So I realized like I feel like kind of unbelongingness with like what I was studying, and also it it was very like contradictory with my reality that was happening every day. So and slowly I realized like how like being an indigenous man, uh, came from the indigenous community, and how the political structure or the power structure has always kind of it's very inequality, and kind of strategic suppression and inequality was happening. If you look at the history of Nepal, then like the majority of the power structure or politics is always uh, dominated by the like patriarchal Brahminic uh, people, and so somehow my art practice became a kind of like uh, fighting for my own mm, fighting for my rights or identity, or against the inequality that happening in current time. I think I might stop right here and right now.
That was wonderful. Thank you all so much. That's incredible to hear those sort of personal, what we think of as heroes' journeys almost for all three of you. Really wonderful. Something you just said, Hitman, you were talking about your practice of art. And I was thinking about how we think of as art and practice. The practice of art is kind of not we as in the four of us, but socially it's thought of as sometimes this hyper individualistic act that happens, the practice happens in this solitary way. But there's this tradition of artists working in solidarity rather than being solitary, and artists' communities. And the three of you have really done that, right? The three of you have really worked in solidarity and for the community with your art. So Hitman, as part of, just like from what I know, as part of Art Tree Nepal, Kathmandu Triennale, among so many other movements that you've been part of. And then Ikroop as part of Karti Dharti, Isma as part of Aurat Azadi March in Shahri Punjab. So what's that like? How is that a source of tension for you? What's that experience like?
It's been like you said, the personal practice of an artist is solitary, and I have worked you know, alone most of the time. So I'm sitting in my studio. If I'm working on an animation, I'm just sitting in front of a computer. Even if I'm working for someone else, when you're animating, you're sitting in that editing room alone. And when I worked for Karti Dharti, when we kind of came together, it was very spontaneous, very kind of explosive. And it's something that I crave, honestly, this kind of solidarity through a cause. It's the best feeling. Like I personally love it. I would love to do more of it. I wish we had more ways to kind of come together. Last year, Shaheen Bagh was that kind of explosive space for artists to come together. But in Shaheen Bagh, I felt a little removed. I felt like it wasn't my fight. I went there to support them, and I was there physically, but I wasn't sure how do I fix this. But with the farmers movement, it was so personal because that's Punjab is where I come from. My ancestors, people, my uncles are farmers, so I was like, okay, this came more naturally to me. But the solidarity is something I crave. Like it's the best feeling. I loved it.
Would you talk a little bit about Karti Dharti, if you don't mind, just briefly for the viewers who might not know about it?
So Karti Dharti, Sangeet Toor, who is the founder of Karti Dharti, she and I had been talking about 6 months prior to the farmers' protests, and she was writing articles about it. So we kind of got in touch, and she asked me a few questions about Pagri Samhal Jatta movement. I had made an illustration about it in Bhagat Singh because Bhagat Singh's uncle was a part of that movement. So we kind of started talking, and Sangeet then went on to become an integral part of the farmers' protest because she had been covering it for 6 months. She was there every day, driving from Chandigarh to the borders every weekend whenever she could. So I kept in touch with her. I was keen on knowing what's going on the ground, and I asked her. I was like, just let me know if there's anything I can do to help. At that point in time, they had started trolley times, and trolley times. So I was writing for trolley times, and as trolley times became this phenomenon, they asked her that why don't you start a newspaper which is women led, because we can see that women farmers are underrepresented. In fact, women farmers are not considered farmers. They're just considered labor. They're not even considered labor. They're just considered, women of the house who are just there. So she kind of took that on, and Karti Dharti came up. Then they got a designer on board. It was the most kind of organic way of something coming together. And all like I was like, please let me know if I can contribute. How can I help? Just give me a chance to be a part of it. I mean, I wish I could do more. I would love to do like a comic strip per publication. That would be exciting. Hopefully that'll happen in the future. But yeah, so Karti Dharti now has taken a life of its own. It's kind of doing its thing.
Amazing. Thank you.
I would like to work collectively with other people more than I already have. I feel like I have not done that enough. Also because I think that uh, my my poster for Aurat Azadi March was the first time I made protest art, which is fairly recent. All of my work does deal with systems of control and does talk about them, but making protest art as part of a larger community, this was the first time that I experienced it. Not that I hadn't worked in the community before. So with Shri Pakistan and with Buffalo Studios, which was a studio that I was a part of that made Chere Tabassum, the short film on the freedom of expression. That was very much a community, a little community that we had built because every single artist, every single creative in that team was passionate about these issues. We would like share ideas, we would share stories. And it was a very conscientious little group that was constantly engaging with society, engaging with issues that surrounding all of us, and being able to back out of different areas. So I think that community already existed. But I think when it comes to protest art, when it comes to um, making art for the movement, I think it is, as Ikroop said, it is something that it's so transformative. It is so transformative, and it changes you in ways that you didn't think of before, and you learn so incredibly much. And I genuinely feel like, because I mean, I look up to you, so if and Hikmat, and also here in Pakistan as well, I feel like there's so many people that have been doing this part before I have, like artists like Shazil Malik. And I feel like we are all a part of that fabric. Okay, I'm digressing. I'll come back to the point. No, but it's truly a transformative experience. And it's also humbling because when you're working individually, it's very easy to get caught up in details. It's very easy to focus on oneself. Um, and I think that when you are a part of a larger community, it's humbling because it it cannot be about you and it should not be about you. It is a collective voice. When you're making something, it is imbued with the voices of the people who are surrounding you. Um, and it's just it's a beautiful experience. And yeah, and also I feel like the art as this individualistic activity, even like that notion is so harmful because you are closing like you're closing opportunities and possibilities for yourself to grow and learn with people. And yeah, I like the groups that I crave it and I long to be involved in it even more and with more passion with fervor. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable, like working collectively because I've been working collectively since when we were in school. So whenever there was some issues like administration issues, so I was always part of the, like that change should be should be, like happened, or I was part of that movement. And also now I'm part of this artist collective called Art in Nepal. So we are 5 artists from different 5 indigenous background. So it almost been 8 years. We working together. So we share our studio, everything. So we work together and we eat together. We do most of the work together. And also we've been doing a lots of collaborative work with different activists, writers, from the different background of different profession. So it's kind of collective movement. So recently we are also doing lots of collaborative work with the different local communities in different part of Nepal from different indigenous community. So we've been actively, like traveling different part of Nepal and trying to collaborate or trying to do something with the local community. So we've been like documenting or like collecting a different folklore songs, stories, and also trying to understand more about the communities we've been working with. And it's also developing the relationship with them, close relationship with them, because I think it's not like uh, my individual struggle or only the struggle of certain specific community. Lots of challenges, and the problems are very similar. So maybe we can exchange lots of things and come up with like collectively and fight against or fight for our rights or reclaim our yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was wondering, what is it that the three of you think that the artist can achieve that the critic, the journalist, the academic, and even, let's say, an activist who's not engaged or immersed in art cannot. So, what can the artist achieve that perhaps nobody else can when it comes to protest and social change? Yeah.
Art is it's a universal language too, right? Like visual art. You don't need prior knowledge. You don't uh, need to know how to read. You don't need to be equipped with certain skills or certain things. It is something that speaks to you instantaneously. While reading through an article or an academic book or listening to a journalist speak, I feel like all those forms, like it's not that instantaneous kick almost that you get. Like you look at that artwork and it either like visual piece or artwork, it either affects you instantaneously or it doesn't. And I think accessibility is a huge thing with that. It's able to sum up concepts uh, that in writing would perhaps take up a lot of space or a lot of time. And it's a unifying force, I feel, like a visual language, like all art is, I guess, like poetry and music. And it also has like a community element to it. You experience it, especially with protest art, you're engaged in it together. It's a collective voice, summed up into like one recognizable visual, and behind it, like the voices of like so many people. Um, yeah, but not to say like that one is better than the other, like visual art over journalism or academic papers, obviously. But there are certain qualities that it has that I feel might not, that might be more effective in some cases than other uh, forms. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Isma put it really well. I had thought about this question, and I wasn't very sure how I would answer that, because art and everything can be art and nothing can be art. It's so. But she said it. She put it across really well. It can kind of connect with you without your being literate in the language of certain concepts, or even being illiterate. So yeah, that's really beautifully put. I would agree with that.
Uh, I think it's depend on the intention of because all the profession are somehow problematic too, because I can't say like all the art practices are not problematic. So I think it's depend on the of the artist and his practice or her practice. So, but I think art is kind of privileged to be like limitless. So there is not kind of any limitations. Uh, if you are like freely, honestly doing what you believe in, because most of the other profession are not, I think, not that much privileged, because being a journalist is really challenging, because this publication house been all mostly, like uh, sponsored by the nations or the corporate house, and there is certain kind of restrictions and. Uh, but I think, yeah, if you able to be free from all those kind of uh, nets, then maybe you can do more ethically or honestly. You can contribute something, that makes sense or meaningful.
Add to that, what you said, Nitman, is really sorry, is really interesting because yeah, like art is problematic too in a lot of areas. Like there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens there as well. But also this is such a big conversation at the same time, like Ikroop said. It's so complex because there's so many different ways of communication. And with protest art, as opposed to like articles or journalists, or the other forms that you mentioned, I feel like, yeah, like everything is art and nothing is art. Like these are such big conversations that I feel are very tricky to sum up. And I think, honestly, if you ask me this tomorrow, my answer would probably change because the more you think about this, the more you like recognize the problems and limitations that are existent in this form, but you also realize like deeper ways in which it resonates with people, which might or might not have to do with the artist. I'm gonna stop right here before this gets too existential and too abstract. But yeah, it's a really big conversation. I feel.
Yeah, because like in mostly in creative field, there is also lots of kind of like performative LIC or abstraction from the and somebody getting a lots of profit from it, but lots of people have kind of become a part of like somebody is using them or uh, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, art has become so institutionalized, and now with curators coming in and other kinds of galleries and gallerists, and even the Binals and the Trinals and their curators, there are a lot of biases and prejudices which float around. So it's, as an artist, it's very difficult to navigate those institutions without feeling oppressed. And then you wonder, why did I choose to be an artist? I mean, I chose to be an artist to be free of all these, you know, constraints. And suddenly now I have to follow up on administrative work and figure out who to talk to and how to network. So I feel like boundaries are blurred now that institutions have come in. Personal practices and productions that you have separately for a living, you have to make work which will sell. So it's a little complex. You kind of have to figure a middle path where you're like, okay, I have to make money, but I need to get commissions. Yeah, it's getting more complex.
Mm.
Just one last thing to add to that. Like it's also really tricky now because speaking up on social issues has become something that brands and institutions are capitalizing on, right? Like all of a sudden it's in vogue. And also I think there's this thing that when, for instance, you create something or make something, all of a sudden brands want to cover you, magazines want to cover you and extract you as this, again going back to that like individualistic artist notion. Like they want to extract you from that fabric of which you're part, which is obviously like the voices and everything who came before you who created such art, and turning you almost into a product. But yeah, I've literally forgotten what the question was at this point. I feel like we've gone so far away from the actual thing. Yeah, it's
I
tricky.
mean, I can talk about institutions and curators, and I have very complex feelings for all of those things because you know, I'm like, yeah, sometimes it works, but most of the times it's pretty, shitty. So
Yeah.
I don't know how performance art works because you can't really put, it's not an object because now art has become about object making, because that you can send to galleries and you can kind of have an exhibition around it. But performance art, you can't really sell in that way. So how do you manage to kind of have practices which sustain you, Hitman? Or shall I call you Gurung? I'm
Yeah.
used to Gurung because there are a lot of Nepalis here where I live. I'm kind of familiar with the last name.
Yeah, it's really challenging, like but I think for lots of the developed country, in there, like lots of artists been supported by the like institutions, galleries, or lots of like So there is a strong support system, but in our region, like country Nepal, we don't have that strong support system. Not only from the government, but also even from the corporate sector or private sector. So in it's all by your own, So you have to invest yourself, or you have to do everything by yourself. Uh, but I think it's depend on uh, it's a kind of continuous art practice what you are doing. So sometimes this medium can be very effective and powerful than other medium like painting or sculpture. So uh, so like when your concept required certain specific medium, then I think you should follow that. So because in my experience, when we do lots of protest art, so mostly we do it in a very public sphere, so lots of the people was involved there, and also you get certain kind of both, positive and negative feedbacks, so sometimes there is not always the positive, sometimes there is also negative feedbacks, uh, but it's a part of your art practice, I think.
I'm turning my sound on nervously. There's a gentleman there who's very diligently mowing outside, unfortunately. But so should you can't hear him? Excellent. So should we do one last question before we finish? Finish? So I wanted to ask, how has the COVID crisis affected you as artists, as activists? What role especially, and how does protest art, I guess, shift in this time?
Shall I begin? Well, COVID has been a roller coaster. But right before COVID began, I had started being on Bhagat Singh, the graphic novel. So I was planning on isolating myself as it is. So I had moved back to my parents' home in the hills, and I was like, okay, I'll be here. And then lockdown happened. Bless you. And then lockdown happened, and there was a lot of anxiety, of course. So it kind of, I spiraled a little bit with anxiety. But then the farmers' protest started happening, and then you had to snap out of it. Then it's not all about you; it's about the bigger purpose, and people become important. You start seeing and noticing people outside of yourself, and so I think the protest kind of brought me back, kind of grounded me. It helped to kind of find a center where I wasn't overthinking things. It was a time to act. Yeah. And now we're kind of going back and forth because the farmers' protest is still going on and COVID cases are increasing, but you know that you have to support everybody. Yeah, that's been my experience.
Wait. Okay. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Could you hear me?
Yeah,
Wait, do I need to repeat myself, or what's that like? That just disappeared.
Yeah. Just repeat yourself. I didn't hear the beginning.
Yeah. I was just saying that I was asking Hitman if he wants to go first, because I feel like he has to go last for each question, and I don't want to be that person. So I'm gonna let you go.
so yeah, when the first wave came, so we're luckily able to came back from Sydney, because we were there for the Biennale of Sydney. We were almost stuck there. Luckily, we came back. Then the lockdown started. Then yeah, but uh, I also be like also working for Kathmandu Triennale, upcoming Kathmandu Triennale. So most of the programs and everything we shift to the online. And also after the lockdown opened, from Archery Nepal, we started traveling inside the country. So because we felt like we have to be positive and active, even like the situations are not in our favor. So we able to travel lots of places in Nepal and able to do something which we wanted from long time. And also before this second wave came, so just before the day lockdown happened, so we came back from like out of the Kathmandu, and now we are stuck almost like 1.5 month. We're having this strict lockdown. So yeah, of course the COVID, like this pandemic has changed lots of things. Like we have to think differently. Like there is no new normal. So and also uh, we we don't want to like get depressed or like down our energy and yeah, trying to do whatever possible in a different way.
Like, COVID really deepened my work and my practice in ways that I didn't think would happen. And also, I feel like because it made so many things apparent, right? Uh, it more than ever, it made apparent like who is in control and who isn't, who has power and who doesn't, who has privileges and who doesn't. Um, and through that, obviously, one also realizes one's own privileges at a time like this. And it was, I feel like I speak for everyone when I say this, a time for a lot of reflection, but also confronting reality, uh, like our personal, like inner realities, and also just what's happening all around us in ways that globally, I don't think all of us collectively have this, like we haven't done this together this way before. But also because of the lockdown, because of COVID, so much of what was happening shifted online. Like um, you would hear more, for instance, you would hear about more domestic violence because there was a rise in domestic abuse and violence. And whatever was happening all over the world, you could be connected to. And in a lot of ways, like even if one already knew these things, already knew the power structures in play, um, like you could see before you how all of those realities converged and were connected in ways that were not previously hidden, but in ways that it was just like a veil was lifted even more. Um, but I think, yeah, for me personally, it was just, I think, a very, very difficult time, which I'm sure was the case for a lot of people, a lot of us. And all of that getting channeled into my work and also realizing that you cannot stay silent. You can, like, all of us are together in this, yes, but all of us are also part of, like, I don't know, like reality and systems that we have the power to change. And yeah, there's so much more I can add to this because well, it's been a difficult year and a half. I don't even, it's been so long. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that initially when COVID happened, the first few months I felt very silly about drawing. I was like, this is such a useless skill. Like, what am I doing? I knew how to do like basic healthcare. I wish I had learned, things that would actually be of service to other people in this time. And I felt kind of foolish sitting at home and like researching Bhagat Singh and drawing. I was like, this is a pointless activity. But over time, yeah, you kind of I made kind of peace with the fact that I may not be an essential worker because artists were classified as non-essential. And I was like, okay, this is the time to branch out and like rethink priorities and kind of figure out where do you stand and where do you want to be in the future of mankind, when if something were to happen, what role do you want to play. So a lot of shifting of priorities did happen for me, and I'm glad that I rethought my purpose. So yes, privileges. I had the privilege to stay at home. We had food. We weren't, that also was a big reality check. So it's been a therapy session. It sounds really entitled. It sounds really silly to say that, but it's been this long therapy session.
Yeah, this second wave, it's like it's more difficult time. So you feel really like helpless, or because in 2015 we had this massive earthquake. So lots of us, lots of the young people, anybody was trying whatever they can, do in their own way. So lots of even the artist community was very active in the like relief process, and also doing a lot of creative activities to like cope the earthquake. But this time it's really, you feel really hopeless, like, or helpless. Like you heard every day, you heard the news, like there is no oxygen in hospital, no beds, and people are dying because of like without because of not getting oxygen or medications. But you can't do anything, like you're just trying to help online or try to use your network, and somehow if there is help, then you can use your network. Otherwise it's really difficult this time.
We also realized our roles as artists too, right? Like as a group said, like it started with everything feeling just frivolous, like, and your work just feeling like, okay, but what am I truly talking about? And then also like coming into that role and realizing the potential that you hold as a creator, how your voice can contribute to actual change. And yeah, like transforming in ways that uh, I feel would have been difficult. Not difficult, but I feel we didn't consider before. So it was like in like difficult, but in a lot of ways like a huge reality check, and also showed us ways to engage more, to be more responsible, and also in terms of I think with my creative practice, I started experimenting with different mediums and methods and different ways of approaching some of the things that I was already talking about, because there was this like restlessness to do more, to be involved more, to like expand ourselves internally, but also what we are capable of. So, and I feel like one's work only benefits from that. Like we don't lose anything from that. But yeah, it was an education. But at the same time, I realized how uh, privileged it is to even say that, to say that the pandemic was a time like that for me. Like that. My reality was very different from other people. Or like it looks like on front lines, and so yeah, a lot of realizations.
Yeah, one exciting thing that happened for me during COVID is that everybody went online. So all the seminars that I could not have attended because there were so many, like, you can't be at two places at the same time. Everything was online now. So I was like, oh, this is great. I can, sit here in Dharamshala and I can watch all these panel discussions about different, museum panels or about Bhagat Singh, many kinds of historical panels about history. So I was like, wow, I like this. I like this shift from needing to be physically present to now having everything on screen. So initially I was excited about that, but now that it's been a year and a half, I'm like, oh my God, when is it going to end? I want to be physically present for something, It would be nice to see other people. So yeah, it's been a strange year and a half.
Yeah. That, what I really loved about listening to this conversation was that the range of responses we've kept you. I've just kind of like sat and kind of been a creeper and enjoyed listening to y'all, but you've kept the nuance and the complexity and the tensions of art, creativity, activism, politics, privilege. So it's a hopeful conversation, while still acknowledging the many tensions, the many realities of who gets to do what in the complex world we live in. But I am so grateful. This was so incredible. Thank you so much. And I hope that we can keep in touch. I hope that we can continue to build on these solidarities that, just like as you all said, are so important and so necessary and become more and more important as we move forward in this terrible pandemic, right? And after it too, I'm sure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I hope everybody stays safe and well, and please reach out if there's anything. I don't know if there's anything I could do, we could do to support you. Yeah.
Thank you for having us. And I was exactly, you literally took the words from my mouth. Like, I was exactly about to say that these solidarities, I hope that this is like a lasting solidarity that we've created. And I will stay in touch with it. I will personally, extremely more with this just after this. But yeah, great to be in politics with all of you. Wish this would continue for a longer time, because I could go on for another hour or so. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kartika. Sorry.
No,
go
please.
ahead. Should I?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Kartika, for having us. And I agree with Isma. I could have continued this conversation. I feel like I'm getting warmed up now. So, but I loved seeing these faces, even if it's through a screen, because usually when you start following an artist's work, it's very rare that you end up having a conversation with them. You kind of see their work online or through Instagram, and it feels distant and not immediate. So this is an excellent way of kind of introducing different people who could, continue the conversation. And it's not an institution, like SAG is not an institution, which is great. This is a new platform, and I'm excited that maybe this can kind of build towards something fun. I don't know how, but it's something to think about, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So happy to, connect with you all. And thank you for invitation. And it's been wonderful speaking with you all.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. I will be thinking about you and sending you all kind of good jujus. Take care. Please keep in touch. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.